Hi, my name is Leah Wenger. I'm the executive pastor here at our Urbana campus. And we've been spending some time the last few weeks talking through what is essential to us in our faith as disciples of Jesus. We've been talking about some of the core pillars that make us who we really are as a Vineyard family. And so today I have the privilege of highlighting the important kingdom values of justice and mercy. Now, justice and mercy are at the core of the kingdom message. Let's not forget that each and every one of us who call ourselves believers have been forgiven and are walking in freedom thanks to God's mercy. And our mandate as believers is to give away what we've been given. Right? We have received love, so we can go be love. God has been merciful towards us, and now we have the opportunity to dump that mercy back into the world. And justice? Justice is simply making wrong things right. And we are committed as a Vineyard family to leading the charge on mercy and justice. Why? Because we're kingdom people. That means we want to love big and we want to be active participants in justice and mercy. Now, what would motivate us to act justly and love mercy other than Micah 6:8 from Scripture, right? Well, hopefully it's because we are rooted in a real personal relationship with Jesus. You know, when you know Jesus, you want to be just like him. And what we know to be true about Jesus is that compassion, which is just another word for mercy, compassion is what prompted his actions. Compassion led to action. And scripture after scripture shows us that Jesus was moved by compassion and then something happened, right? Moved by compassion, Jesus touched the blind eyes and they were healed. Moved by compassion, Jesus fed the hungry. And when he saw the crowds that were helpless and confused, he had compassion on them. Moved by compassion, he reached out and he touched the man with leprosy and he was healed. Jesus' compassion, his mercy, always led to action. Now, mercy or compassion, it's not just like this feeling we have like, oh, we just feel bad for someone. No, it's so much more than a feeling. It starts with this deep feeling of sympathy for someone who has experienced misfortune. But that feeling is also accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate that suffering. Do you know what we call that? That desire to alleviate the suffering of someone else? That is justice. Compassion leads to action. Mercy leads to justice. And justice is simply restoring what is broken in the world. Isn't that what Jesus came to do? What was stolen from us, from humanity in the fall, was restored through Jesus. He came to make every wrong thing right again, to restore. And as followers of Jesus, it is imperative that we are actively reconciling the wrongs that we see in the world. We are called to be moved by mercy, to be moved by compassion into action, to release that justice into the world. Zechariah 7:9-10 says it this way: treat one another justly. Love your neighbors. Be compassionate with each other. Don't take advantage of widows, orphans, visitors, and the poor. Don't plot and scheme against one another. That's evil. Followers of Jesus are called to treat one another justly. That means we are actively reconciling the wrongs that we see in the world. So what are some of these wrongs that are happening right now in 2020? Where do we begin, right? Abortion, sex trafficking, the refugee crisis, gun violence, racial injustice. That's just a few, right? There's quite a few more. As kingdom people, we are called to be moved by compassion, to be moved by mercy into action, because we are the restorers of the broken. We are the reconcilers of the wrongs. But we miss out on this opportunity to release compassionate justice into the world when we simply don't recognize the wrongs. Whether it's intentional disregard for the problems in our world or it's legit ignorance, I promise you this, it's not bliss. We cannot be living out the kingdom values of justice and mercy if we ignore the wrongs happening right in front of us. We cannot ignore the fact that our children are being trafficked. We cannot ignore the fact that our people are living in cages. We cannot ignore the hungry in our communities. We cannot ignore the fact that last week, our Jacob Blake, was shot 7 times in the back by police officers while his children watched. And if we can't say our in front of any of these wrongs, we do not understand the heart of Jesus. His creation, his people, they are ours. And we can't ignore the wrongs that are being done to them. If we ignore those wrongs, we are not understanding what Jesus came to do. We cannot ignore the things right in front of us. We have to recognize or we'll never be able to reconcile. And let me remind you, we don't pit one reconciliation against another. That is a distraction from the enemy. If you see a brother or sister pushing back the darkness, working to recognize and make right a wrong in our world, then celebrate it. Do not attack them for not pushing back the wrong you are working to reconcile. We are all called to recognize the wrongs, to be moved by compassion, and to bring justice to the world, and not to pit one reconciliation against another. Mercy and justice, these are kingdom values. Mercy and compassion lead us to justice. And when we begin to recognize wrongs in the world, when we recognize that someone has experienced a misfortune, we must be willing to jump into action to help alleviate that suffering. We will never be moved by compassion if we don't walk in humility. Look, it's humbling to admit, I just might not understand your situation. I just might not have the full picture. I just might not know something. I see something now that I didn't see before. The question is, what are you going to do when you see it? What will you do when you recognize the wrong? I grew up in quite a few small towns around central Illinois. In fact, just for the sake of reference, my graduating class had 32 kids. I'll say that one more time, 32, like super small towns, right? These towns were all very small and they were very white. And I had great experiences. I actually made wonderful friends along the way, but I will admit that my worldview was pretty limited based on my experience. So when I went to the University of Illinois, my worldview expanded. The university was large and diverse, lots of people from lots of different places, people from big cities with different family systems, with different faith backgrounds. I mean, I was seeing things that I had not yet seen before. I had the privilege of learning to engage in conversation with people who were very different from me. You know, we can learn a whole lot by simply listening to the experiences of others, recognizing that we just might not know it all. And here's the truth. I had a lot to learn. So at my time at the university, through many conversations with my roommate, who is now my longtime friend, Christina, I had the honor of seeing things that I did not see before. Christina lovingly pulled back the curtain for me and exposed a world of wrongs that I simply could ignore because they had not been in my experience. And here's the thing, on paper, Christina and I are so similar, right? Great students. We were involved in every extracurricular activity, athletes, followers of Jesus, both Enneagram 8s. Any 8s out there? Hey. But our experience in the world was so very different. Tears filled my eyes as Christina shared story after story with me of being racially profiled. When she, as an educated, hardworking, brilliant Black woman, would be followed around a store simply because a clerk was worried she might steal something. What? Ask any of your brown or Black brothers and sisters what their experiences have been like in this world. This, what she experienced, that is not a rare occurrence. That is the norm. I had a choice. Do I ignore the wrong, or do I recognize the wrong and allow myself to be moved by compassion so that I can begin to release justice in the world? Do I try to defend the actions of those who have done the wrong, or do I use my voice and help amplify the voices of the people around me, those who have been hurt, those who have been suffering? As believers, we don't have the option of sitting back. Jesus modeled this when he recognized a wrong, when he saw the hungry, when he saw the hurting and confused, when he saw the one who needed healing, when he saw the religious people trying to stone the sinner. When he recognized the wrong, he was moved by compassion and he did something. He made the wrong thing right. We are kingdom people. We want to be just like Jesus. And this week, when you recognize a wrong, would you be willing to be moved by compassion into action? Would the compassion of Jesus lead you to do something? Not to respond in anger, but to respond with compassion and mercy and begin to release justice into the world. Because justice and mercy are foundational to the kingdom. And I can't wait to hear the stories of how you're changing the world with Jesus as you release these kingdom values of justice and mercy into the world.